frosty margarita.
Grab a glass, grab a seat. It's Two Margaritas with Matt.
You okay if I throw something crazy at you right away?
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to do this every time I do it, but I have here, it's like a box of 200 questions,
Okay.
and they are all over the place.
Okay.
So where do you want me to pick from? You want from the front, the middle, or the back part of this stack here?
Let's do the middle.
Do the middle? All right. We'll see where your head's at here tonight. There you go. In what era, Sam Herder, would you like to have grown up? There you go. In what era would you like to have grown up?
Yeah. Probably either the 70s or the 80s. Probably. I feel like the stories back then, especially in high school. I'm thinking more so high school. It seems like high school is so much more fun than compared to when I was in high school, which was late 2000s, 2010 ish. I remember some of the coaches, talking to us about how if we had um, someone on our football team or whatever that was kind of, being a smartass or whatever. I remember them telling us, well, back in the day, we would just kind of, take them behind the garbage can, they're behind the dumpster, and teach them a lesson. But you can't do that anymore. So I don't know. I just feel like growing up in the 70s and 80s would have been pretty fun.
70s, Dazed and Confused style. Have you seen that movie?
I have not for a while though, so I couldn't do any like reference one-liners from that movie.
The paddles and stuff with
Yep.
Ben Affleck and all that, chasing the
Yep.
freshmen.
Yep.
Real old school.
Yeah.
Were you popular in high school?
Moderately, I guess. I don't know.
Were you middle of the pack? I was definitely middle of the pack. That's how I would define my time in high school.
Yeah, I mean, I played a lot of sports, but I wouldn't have considered myself a jock back then, and so wasn't really a huge social butterfly, kind of like now, not like a huge social butterfly, but yeah, kind of in the middle of the pack, like you said.
I remember I had a class of 19. How many kids were in your class growing up?
Uh, Graduated class of 70.
70. See, that's like the perfect size. I bet you were able to find at the minimum a friend or two, but you could kind of escape the big clique, I suppose.
Yeah, and there was a kind of a wide variety of, even with a class of 70, there's a wide variety of, people you can hang out with. You got the sports people, you got the non-sports people that were still maybe played sports, growing up, but then there's, other groups as well, and so kind of a variety there.
Right, for sure. What year did you graduate high school?
2011.
11. Okay. I didn't know I was older than you. Man, holy moly. There you go. I've
Yeah,
already learned all I need to know about you, Sam. We can
there you
just
go.
call it a night.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. You being on here. Geez, I took one sip of a margarita and I can't even say things right. But
Buckle up. Buckle
yep,
up.
these Cayman Jacks is what I'm going with. I had never
Okay.
had them until about a week ago, and I think they're the first margarita I've ever had that I could pour from a can and it actually tastes good. I don't know if there's any other brands out there you would recommend, but
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
not
pretty
a
tasty.
not a big margarita guy, so my taste in that wouldn't be up to par, I don't think.
Well, no worries. You have anything in your hand tonight, or you going sober water tonight?
Oh yeah, we got there we go, the Bush Light, Bush
Bush Light.
Latte. So classic Midwestern.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, I don't want to talk about football all night. I don't want to talk about the FCS because, we'll just go down that rabbit hole, I feel, nonstop. But I did have a few questions for you. Do you think do you think you're like on the GOAT level that we always tweet at you for FCS coverage? And if you don't think so, I am curious why not in terms of, Craig Haley is like your Michael Jordan GOAT who's been around throughout all the ages, but who else could really even come close to you in that realm? Like, how do you personally feel as a Hero Sports member? Do you feel like you are like the face of FCS media, or at least in the top tier of it? Like, how does your gut say year after year? Because I don't know where else people are going to go to for FCS media outlet.
Yeah, I don't really think of it in that sense. I guess, honestly, I kind of just refer to myself as just some random guy that has a journalism background that likes the FCS and kind of somewhat stumbled into and lucked into a full-time job covering the FCS. And so I usually like to say that, I think my knowledge about the FCS is above average. That doesn't mean my opinions are always going to be right. That doesn't mean my opinions are more important than anyone else's opinions. And so I don't really think about, um, you know, trying to be the. I mean, I guess in a sense I'm, competitive, but I never really think about, oh, I need to be, the best FCS media person out there. I just kind of do what I do, and I guess always I like the constructive criticism. If someone says, "Oh, you write about this too much, or you do this, you tweet about that too much, you tweet about that conference too much, you do this too much on your podcast," I'll go, "Okay, that's probably a fair point. I'll try to adjust it because I don't think what I'm doing is perfect or top notch or anything." So, and I think I'd mentioned to you too in Frisco that it's not like this is a competitive market. All I needed was an opportunity, and from there, I think if you just show that you're passionate about the FCS and you pay attention to it, and you have a platform to talk about it, write about it, whatever, then anyone can kind of ascend and be, I guess, a national voice of the FCS. But again, I don't even like that using that phrase, because again, I don't really think of myself in that manner, I guess.
But do you see yourself at least grassroots? Like, I mean, I don't know many people like yourself who would, when a Matt Frazee from North Dakota or some random podcast is like, "Would you mind just jumping on with us?" I don't really know many people that would just do that. And is that just Sam Herder, like who you are in terms of? I remember talking to you in Frisco. You're like, I really enjoy when these moments involve fun and with people. And is that kind of your mentality when you do that stuff with maybe a little bit of brand outreach? Or, I mean, even tonight, you're like, yeah, let's do it. I'll have a beer. Let's talk on a podcast. Is this part of the fun that makes this job good for you? Or is there more to that?
No, I think it is. I think that's it kind of sums up the FCS where it isn't all overly challenging to get folks on the phone or to do an interview. From my perspective, there's some I haven't been able to get, but for the most part, commissioners and head coaches and ads are willing to talk, and so I think that kind of lends its hand into this as well, as far as me, I guess, being willing. I don't know if that's the right word, but wanting to go on other people's podcasts. Yeah, part of it is to get more brand recognition for Hero Sports and Bet MGM and all that too. But it's also, if someone, it's almost flattering, in a sense. If someone wants you on their podcast, you should probably do a pretty good job because you don't want to be, a shitty guest on their
Right.
podcast and not have people listen to it. So it's almost one of those things when someone asks me to be on their show or other podcasts, I go, yeah, absolutely. I would love to join. Just I think it's cool that someone would enjoy talking to me, about FCS and stuff like that. And there are times where I have to. I rarely say no, but there are times where I have to. That's usually during the football season, where if I I just can't. Sometimes I can't do 5 live hits. In a day. If it's a Wednesday of game week, sometimes I have to say no or push back a week. But for the most part, I love going on other people's shows.
It's kind of an insane thing to say right there to be like, sometimes I can't do 5. Sometimes I can't do 5 shows in a week. I have some things going on. Um, I what would be what do you think about this? So I'm at my job and I'm active in the air guard and good paychecks, good steady stuff, federal salaried thing. But we're always talking like, okay, a sales job offers you this. And then around the office, everyone's like, well, this would be my amount. And well, I'd have to have this package if I was going to leave here, yada, yada. What do you think is the Sam Herder thing? Do you have I'm not saying go set a dollar amount and put your resume out here, but is there something that you would strive beyond the FCS? I hate to treat you like NDSU and be like, you're trying to move up, but are you okay being I'm gonna use all NDSU references here. Are you okay being the really, really big fish in what is a niche small pond of the FCS? I mean, you are a celebrity. You won't say it because you're too modest. I can just tell. You're just like, no, I'm just a guy. But like there something that a dollar amount or a dream job or something beyond media when you were in college and thought this would be a good career that might drive you to go beyond this? Or you pretty content where you're at? And I don't want to give something away with your current employer and everything, but it where's kind of your thought process there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty content with where I'm at right now. Honestly, I haven't updated my resume in probably 5, 6 years, and so I don't plan on going anywhere. But there's things that could be out of my control that could impact that. At any time, Bet MGM could say, well, Sam, we actually think you're more valuable doing NFL stuff for us.
Hmm.
I don't foresee that happening. There's been no indication that would ever happen. They One of the reasons BetMGM did buy Hero Sports was because of our really talented staff, but also we kind of had um, you know a grasp, or we kind of cornered the market of a more niche sports like the FCS, and so there are no plans really to move me off of it. But again, that's something out of my control. If things switch, um, then that's something where, I mean, how many full-time FCS media jobs are out there really?
Right.
Probably not a ton. So it's not like I could just, apply somewhere else for the FCS. But, it's also, one of those things of, I would like to cover the FCS for 20 more years. But
You go for
if
GOAT status. The Tom Brady, huh?
Well, it's just I don't have. I mean, I could write about the FBS if I wanted to. I mean, the cool thing about my job is the reason I'm covering the FCS is because I want to. I mean, I could go to my manager right now and say, "Hey, I kind of want to do some Group of Five stuff," and they would say, "Yeah, sure. I mean, if you think that's what you want to do, and then go for it." But I don't want to cover the FBS. I don't want to cover the NFL because yeah, there's just so many people covering that. It's almost watered down in the aspect of how much media coverage there is, and so it's hard to stick out, in those subdivisions. So I would like to keep on covering the FCS, but in 10 years, the states that read my articles the most are Montana's number one, then I think Minnesota is number two between North Dakota State and South Dakota State fans. Then the Dakotas are up there as well. And so if there's ever a time when North Dakota State, South Dakota State, the Montana schools all went to the Mountain West, I would be dumb not to start covering the Mountain West, or because
Right.
that's where a lot of my followers are. That's where a lot of my listens are. That's where a lot of my traffic is, I guess. And so in that scenario, there's always a chance that I could keep on covering the FCS, but also add on the Mountain West. And so that's another aspect that's out of my control. It's just where is this market going? If the FCS continues to lose big market teams, at some point, the numbers aren't going to reflect that paying someone a full-time salary to cover the FCS is worth it as far as ROI. But numbers have gone up this year for me. I was scared they was going to go down because of James Madison
Hmm.
moving on, but they've gone up for me this year, so that's a positive.
That reflects hard work, man. That's awesome. You mentioned the NFL. You got a team? Do you cheer for an NFL team?
Yeah, I born and raised in Minnesota, so the Vikings. Not, I don't know if I would consider myself a diehard Vikings fan.
Not
I
after
guess.
not after last
Um,
week. Not after
yeah,
last
especially
week.
not after last week. They are my team. I want them to win. I want to see them do well, but I don't get overly attached to them. And honestly, with you know I work Sundays too because I have to do the top 25 poll and kind of prepare the upcoming week. So I don't really watch a whole lot of NFL. I watch the Vikings, but that's about it. And so I'm not overly attached to the NFL. But if there was a team, it'd be the Vikings.
Okay. Any other sports that you actually passionate about? A lot of people know. I like the Sacramento Kings, and they're like, this is the only year they've ever been good in like the history since 2002, maybe. So, for you, is there some random team? I see you probably go to some Twins games and stuff, but any that you like? Is there any that Sam Herder's throwing a remote at the TV at with like aggressive passion? Is there anything like that for you?
Not really, honestly, and that's yeah. I grew up again. I grew up a Twins fan. I used to watch the Twins a lot back in the day. Christian Guzman and Torrey Hunter, Luis
Oh
Rivas, like
yeah,
that
Torrey
squad.
Hunter.
Doug Mankiewicz.
Mm.
Like I watched all of those games, but I'm not a big baseball fan anymore. I don't dislike it. I just don't watch it a ton. Same with basketball. I used to like the Timberwolves. They still. I mean, I want to see them do well, but I don't really watch them a whole lot. And that's the interesting thing about being a sports writer. Some sports writers are just diehard sports fans and they're watching sports all day. You know, I watch enough FCS football throughout the week and rewatch games Sundays and Mondays when I do have off time. I don't really want to watch Monday Night Football. I just want to
Mm.
watch Netflix or something like that. I don't. I try to read a lot of sports content just to hopefully improve my writing, but I'm not, digging out information and stuff like that. Like if you ask me who X standout NBA player plays for right now, there's a chance I wouldn't even know just because that's just not I just not in my wheelhouse anymore. So I am a sports fan, but I'm not like a diehard sports fan like I once was back in college and high school.
So you have to decompress from the sports activities a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
What so right now Allison and I are on Peaky Blinders. It's 6 seasons was out of it. It's about 1900s, some gangster mob coming out over in Germany and in London. It's not bad. It's pretty good. Allison loves it. You just mentioned Netflix. You got a show you're binging or are you on something else? Well, you're in the off season too.
Yeah, so that's the thing too with like during the FCS season, I don't really watch a whole lot of Netflix
You're
either. But
busy,
the
man. You're
yeah, but the
busy.
off season is kind of when I pick some things up. Right now, I'm watching Last Chance U, the latest season, so that's not really a binging type show. But Succession, I was all over that
Ooh,
last year
Succession's
around this
good.
time. Yep, catching up on that. But right now, still trying to find a show to binge watch. Right now, I just haven't gotten going on that yet.
Is that because you are truly too busy, or do you fall back into reruns? Like, I'll fall into Friends and The Office every time I attempt to just find something new. Do you have fallbacks, or is it just a timing thing?
Yeah, right now it is kind of fallbacks. The Office is one, but right now, uh, because I don't know, for me, like I'm not a huge movie guy because in my mind, when I watch a movie, it's great, but in my mind, it's oh yeah, it's 2.5 hours. I don't know if I have 2.5 hours, to spare. And so when I watch, and so like when I want to binge watch something, those are usually 45-minute episodes, and it just kind of just seems like a pretty big commitment. So I'll just I'll watch random episodes of How I Met Your Mother. So that's what I'm doing right now is just turning
Yes.
on random episodes of How I Met Your Mother. I do that with The Office as well. Um, so I just kind of seems like I'm running out of shows to binge watch because I've seen, all of them from Dexter to Prison Break, Breaking Bad, Friday Night Lights, like all the, when you tweet out, "Hey, I'm looking for a new series,
Yep.
send me suggestions," and everyone kind of sends the same eight. I've already seen all those eight, and so Peaky Blinders is one. My good friend Turner Blofis, he's recommended that to me quite a bit. I just haven't, tried it yet, but that could be one that I could try this off season.
Yeah, I was a huge Sons of Anarchy and Breaking Bad fan, and
Yep.
Peaky Blinders gives me that sort of vibe. So
Okay. Yeah.
that's where I run into that. I am so glad you said How I Met Your Mother. That's a top 3 show for me. If you're a single guy raised in our era and you haven't watched How I Met Your Mother, you have completely missed out. The only thing I
Yep.
didn't realize though is that thing is like a carbon copy of Friends because I never watched Friends until Allison, and she's like, "Let's just watch it." And man, they basically took Phoebe out and then just created Friends in the modern era. But Lawrence, Lawrence from the admin page, him
Mhm.
and I'll just drop How I Met Your Mother references nonstop, which is pretty fun. So
Yep,
you
yep, and
you get
that is a good storyline going throughout it too. So
it
that's why
is
that's why I really like it. You can kind of watch random episodes here or there, but at the same time, there's kind of is a storyline arc to it throughout the seasons.
for sure. You think do you watch the show for Ted or do you watch the show for Barney? I've heard people have watched it and, like, they think it's Ted, and then after a season, they're like, "I think it's Barney that kept me going."
Yeah, I haven't thought of that actually. I think probably for Ted, but my favorite character probably is Barney. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I hadn't thought of that before.
I guess it's the relatability factor. For me, it was Ted because I was more of the heartless romantic, for sure,
Hmm.
and Barney's got a total different story arc with that, so
Yeah.
definitely different. I can see right behind you, you got the media pass lanyards, but you've tweeted out before that you have an absolute ton of college football helmets. Is that correct? Is that FCS? Is that purely FCS helmets that you're collecting?
Well, not anymore because I do have a James Madison one.
Oh,
So
that's okay. I've got a hat back there too.
Yeah, I have a Jacksonville State one as well, and a Kennesaw State one as well. But besides that, they're all FCS helmets right now.
Do you have the whole collection, or you think you about 80% there? Or what are some of your big hitters you think you still need to knock out?
Well, I started the mini helmet collection in 2018 or 2019, I believe, and I got to about I think I have maybe 20 of them. But then I started to realize that with the helmet itself plus shipping, they were coming out to be $50 to $60 per helmet, and I was like, okay, if I try to get all 100 plus, that's just $5,000 I'm going to be spending on mini helmets. And I did get some sent to me from fans, but it was also at the same time, I don't, I usually I don't know. It's kind of one of those things of giving your address out to strangers. There are
Right.
some people that I interact with a lot, on Twitter that I've never met before, but like, okay, I can kind of tell you're a good person. I've interacted with you a lot, but there are others that, hey, let me sell you, or not sell you, let me send you this, and I'm like, I don't know. So I kind of stopped that. I haven't bought a new mini helmets in quite
Hmm,
some time, just because it was getting pretty spendy, and I wasn't quite sure, where I was going to put them all. And at the same time, too, they're not all available either. I think most of the Big Sky, the Valley ones are available. A lot of the CAA a lot of the CAA ones are available online, but like I don't think I could find like a Furman mini helmet online. I couldn't find a Sam Houston mini helmet online, so they're not all
really?
available online. And this was again 4-ish years ago, and so they could be online now. But at the time, I was because I didn't want to. I'm always conscious of this too with what I tweet, what I write. I don't want to go too heavy on one conference, and so I didn't want to get just all Valley helmets or all Big Sky helmets. I try to go SoCon and Southland, but some of those just weren't available at the time.
Right. That at this point, have you embraced the and Sam Herder hates my team? He only likes this conference sort of thing. Are you just steering into that at this point? Or is it still kind of grind your gears? Or did it ever even grind your gears? What is it? Was it a brand building thing for you? Obviously, Sam Herder hates my team, but there's no way the NDSU things people say about you make you happy. You got to just be like, okay, bro, seriously. I graduated from there. I got a good media start there, but I clearly am not a fan. Like, how does your mental health play out throughout the months as random non-profile picture Twitter accounts just come at you with weird stuff?
Yeah, the Sam Herder hates my team stuff. I don't even know how like that kind of took on a life of its own, and that doesn't really bother me a whole lot because most of the time, it's a bit. And some people even steer that into Sam Herder hates my dog and stuff like that, and like that, like I know that is joking and all that, so that doesn't bother me a whole lot. You know the NDSU Homer stuff still kind of bothers me. I hear it a lot less every year. I've been covering the FCS full time since 2018, and I hear it a lot less every year, which is telling me something that that's probably a good thing that maybe people realize that, um, I'm trying not to be biased toward NDSU. And when I started covering the FCS full time too, like I got rid of all my Bison gear from college because I did go to school there. Uh, but then I tell people I grew up 45 minutes south of Fargo. If I grew up 45 minutes north of Grand Forks, I would have went to UND. So I didn't have any allegiance to NDSU growing up. I didn't. I watched some of their games just because they were on the local channel, whatever. I can't remember what channel that was back then, but like I didn't grow up a Bison fan or anything. And when I went to school there, I watched 95% of the games up in the press box where you're supposed to be a professional. And so even then, I didn't really have an allegiance toward NDSU. And then once I started covering the FCS full time, was when I had, any NDSU gear I had from college, I either gave away or threw out just because I might be young, I guess, but I still kind of have old school mentality as far as you shouldn't have a rooting interest in a league that you're covering. And so, the NDSU Homer stuff still kind of bothers me a little bit. It's not anything that's going to ruin my day, but it's one of those things where if I went to Southern Illinois and I predicted Southern Illinois to make it to the semifinals this upcoming year, then it'd be like, okay, like that's kind of a homer pick there.
Right.
But when you pick NDSU to go 10-1 and get the number 2 seed and win a national title, am I really being a homer or am I just, having the same opinion, is everyone else? And so um that's that kind of stuff comes with the territory. I know a lot of people say they don't like, oh, the trolls don't matter, just ignore them. uh but I mean, anyone will say that, getting trolled or getting called a clown or a joke or whatever, like no one likes that. Like no one's like, oh, whatever, who cares, I don't care. Like it's still going to impact you a little bit. You just don't like
Oh
let it
yeah.
you just don't let it ruin your day. You see it and you're like, oh, that sucks, I wish that person didn't think of me like that. I'm sure if they met me in person, they'd be like, oh yeah, Sam's decent. So like I don't like getting trolled and people coming at me personally, but at the same time, either I respond and try to downplay it or I just ignore it and I just kind of move on because now it comes with the territory, I suppose.
Yeah, nobody does. But you're kind of like, I'm not gonna compare you to this guy because he's had some stuff. The owner of Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy, he was in an interview and he's like, I've kind of gotten to a weird point where I'll say something in response to some person I'm on Twitter, and my people, whether no matter what I said, whether it was good or dumb, they just come out and hit the like button like a monster. And your stuff's usually pretty savvy, but I do notice like when you come back at somebody who's saying some dumb comment, that thing just goes whoop. It's like the
Yeah.
FCS community is like, nope, we like Sam. Here's a lot of hearts. We'll
Well,
back
that
him
that
up a little bit.
yeah, and that's the thing too is, everyone likes reading the replies, and so when you see a tweet, you know, you're catching up on Twitter and you see a tweet from me or whoever, and you see there's 12 replies under it because you can see that on Twitter now. It's like, oh, what are people saying? And so everyone likes to read the replies. And yeah, sometimes when someone says, and again, I said it earlier, like I like constructive criticism. If someone, I'm pretty open minded too. So if someone comes back with a counterpoint, usually I'm like, oh, that's a fair point. I hadn't
Yeah,
thought of that before. That's a fair point. I'm not going to be sitting here like, oh no, my opinion is better than yours. Yours is wrong. I'm right. Nothing like that. But if someone just says something completely ludicrous, sometimes you have to take the opportunity to dunk on them, and then sometimes that dunk gets more likes from other people than the original tweet. And sometimes that is fun, especially when it's just something completely ludicrous and false. But at the same time, you kind of have to pick your battles as well, because if I respond to someone and then they respond to me, I'm going to feel the need to respond to that response. And then the last thing you want is a 10 tweet thread of an argument where no one really looks good in that
right.
situation. And so I do like interacting with people, both positive and negative, but there are times when it's been 2 hours, my phone is still blowing up, and I just got to mute this conversation because there's too many people interacting with it, which is good, but half the time it's someone responds, a Montana fan responds, then a Montana State fan responds to that person, and then they get into an argument, and then an Eastern Washington fan swoops in, and I'm getting tagged in all this, not interacting at all, and I'm like, all right, I just got to mute this conversation because it's just blowing up my phone and my mentions right now.
You just described Twitter perfectly.
Yeah,
It can
pretty
be
much.
such an absolute nightmare. It can just be crazy. I love saying this story. It describes social media perfectly. Is Alice and I, our dog we had, Charlie, he's Great Dane, half black lab, half Great Dane. He passed away last year, and he big sucker, so we'd have to rollerblade him around our community. Like we'd have to be on rollerblades just so he could gallop like a horse and get his workouts. He'd go by these chain link fences, and there'd be these small little dogs behind these fences, and they just yip 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 yip. And Charlie would just get all like, you could just see it in him. He's like, "Oh, I want to go take care of that little dog." And I'd say the same thing to him every time. I'd say, "Charlie, it's fine, buddy. They're all loud behind the fence. You ever come by those little dogs and there's no fence? It was pure silence. They were never even going to consider it." I think that's social media. You can run into these same exact people who do that stuff to you face to face. They'd buy you a beer at the bar. They'd never be hostile. It's just, it's a weird world, man. It's a weird world. You graduated 2011, right?
Yep, high school. Yeah.
So Facebook for you, maybe when would you have created a Facebook account?
I think I created Facebook in 2009. And I actually didn't create Twitter until I think spring of 2012. And I was, I was always kind of like late to social media. I was late to Snapchat. Uh, for some reason, I was like, whenever there was like a fad, like I kind of wanted to like steer against that and be like, oh, I'm not gonna go into that. And so when Twitter was really popular my freshman year, I hadn't downloaded it, but then I got hired to be the sports editor of the NDSU Spectrum my sophomore year, and so I knew that summer I had to basically create a Twitter account just from just from sports coverage. That kind of comes with the territory, even in 2012. And so I've had that Twitter account since 2012. Hopefully, it gets uh unblocked, or not blocked, but I got
Yeah,
hacked. I
you
got
were
hacked.
hacked today.
I got hacked last night and today. Moving in a positive direction as far as getting that back, but yeah, that was wild to see. I
Yeah,
have no idea what happened. I just automatically got logged out and I couldn't log back in, and I was getting spam emails and you know text message authenticate trying to authenticate my account and like codes, like, I was like, what is going on? And then I just got locked out and I haven't been able to log back in. But the freaky avatar, that's gone now. Some of the tweets it was sending last night, those are gone now. They got my email back on the account now. I'm just having trouble logging in because I've tried too many times in the last 24 hours where
oh, I bet.
every time I try to reset my password, excuse me, it says, you're trying to reset this too much. You're gonna have to wait. And so now I might have to wait another 12 hours to reset my password, and then hopefully then I can get that going. Because if I had to start a new Twitter account, that would be kind of a blow, because that's where a lot of my traffic comes from and a lot of my engagement comes from, is that Twitter account. So
Yeah, for sure. They were sending other tweets from your account?
Yeah, so I don't even want to say the name, but it was because I still have access to the Hero Sports FCS account, and so that's when I was just on that Twitter account monitoring my personal one, and I hadn't noticed anything different besides the fact that I was locked out, and all of a sudden it changed its name to something weird, and it changed it to some avatar with a black you know bandana and face mask or whatever, and I was like, it wasn't tweeting anything, but then I went to tweets and replies, and it was replying to another account with the same name and then like replying to that account, then having a link. And so it was trying to trick people into thinking it was that other main person and then click on a link. But those tweets have now since been deleted. I don't know who deleted them, if that was Twitter. So that's good. And now it's just a Twitter egg, and my name's back on it. So I don't know. It was a weird deal, but it hopefully more optimistic tonight than I was last night about getting that back.
Yeah, that is that is a heck of a hack. Somebody was somebody was going in on your account, man. That is crazy. I do think it's strange with that NDSU thing you mentioned. It's funny how like you went to NDSU and used it for your education, and everyone seems to just hound in on that. But myself and probably thousands of other Bison fans never take a class from NDSU. I mean, not at all. I was raised by my dad, who was a farmhouse alum, 1989 born for me. He said, "Hail the Bison. You're going to hate the Sioux, and that's how this is going to work." And, that's where my fanhood started. But I've never been to NDSU, but I can get away with being a fan. But you go to the university, and then everyone says that you're just some sort of diehard. It's pretty crazy how people get those things twisted around. They can't see things the right way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Mr. Herder, in the beginning, middle, or end of this glass box, what do you want? We're going
Uh,
question number 2.
I was gonna say we're doing this again. I did middle to open the show, right?
You got it.
Um, let's do the back.
Backside. All
Yeah.
right. Here we go. If you're not watching on YouTube, you don't have to. You're missing the glass box reveal. If you could do something dangerous just once with no risk, what would you do? Something dangerous just once, no risk. What would you do? I'll give you a second to think on it. I already know mine.
Mm.
I would absolutely swim with orcas or killer whales in the wild. I think that would be super awesome. Or even there was like sharks around and everything. I know people like do it. I've seen it on YouTube. They're like, they're just animals. Stay calm. But I would never stay calm if there was no if the I'd actually freak out. But I think that'd be super cool to be in the ocean. You can't drown. They can't attack you. Just animals that I can't even imagine how big those suckers are in real life. So I'd spend some time with free will in the ocean if there was no risk that that thing was going to flip me up like a seal and make me its lunch. How about you, man? Risk free, anything in the world.
If it was risk free, I would probably. I'd like to visit an island that's never been visited before. Um, and I know there's I don't even know necessarily about uncontacted tribes. I go down
Oh
that
yeah,
rabbit hole every now and then against with YouTube and uncontacted tribes.
it
I don't even
takes
know
you down.
I
Takes
don't
you
even know
down the.
necessarily that. Well, if there's no risk to me and no risk to them, then I would do that because bringing them diseases and stuff like that they're not immune to. So got to keep that top of the mind too. But probably just go to some remote island that no one's ever been there before and just explore it, knowing there's no risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that. I've seen that on YouTube. Like I'll start with like plane that crashed in the mountains, and then you work your way down, and it's like this island's never been inhabited. But that stuff's real. There's some tribe out there that like no human, like it's completely people like drive the boats by and everything, but you're not allowed to go out there because you'd probably just give them a bunch of diseases, and they've never been vaccinated, and heck, who knows what goes on. There was some really creepy horror movie somebody made about that, like 5, 6 years ago. I forget what the name of it was, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
okay.
that island is called North Sentinel Island, where they've tried to contact it, and there's photos of them like shooting bows and arrows at planes as they're flying by. It's pretty wild.
North Sentinel Island is one of the Andaman Islands in Indian Bay of Bengal, which includes South Sentinel Island. Yeah, an indigenous people in voluntary isolation who have defended, often by force, their protected isolation from the outside world. That is crazy. So these people just they've never seen. real humanity and stuff. Oh yeah, we got images and stuff.
Oh yeah,
That-
yeah, yeah. They're. I mean, I'm sure it's a challenging lifestyle, but they probably got it better than us right now, honestly, with all, with all the crap we have to deal with in the 2023 calendar year.
Well, imagine if crap hits the fan, like everything just goes to complete shit, and you know, warfare and famine and everything. They're going to be fine. They're literally gonna have no troubles, and I bet they could swim with an orca and literally not even think about it. They'd just be
Yeah,
totally
yeah,
cool with it.
yeah.
So, which is crazy. Yourself, my man, what is like Sam Herder likes to tweet out that you're on the lakes, you've got a bush light on the boat. What would you say are like hobbies? Like everyone knows he has the hero sports guy. What are the things you would say besides binging Netflix and spending time on the lake? Do you have extra things you're like, this is my jam that someone might not know about?
Yeah, no, like nothing specific. Just a lot of different things. I guess. Like I don't really hunt or fish or like those. When people think of hobbies, like I think people like think of that. So nothing specific like that, but just kind of like being out on the lake, bonfires. I like breweries. I like sitting around. Like I said, bonfires, listening to country music. Going to new concerts and stuff like that is kind of. I don't know if you would consider those hobbies, but those are kind of the things when I'm not watching FCS football or when I'm not tweeting. Those are the things I'm usually doing, and it's funny too because not and I hate politics. I'm not a political person at all, but it's always funny because I never tweet about politics really, but it's always funny when like I follow people that do tweet about politics and they tweet about a bunch of different stuff, and when they tweet a picture of their dog or a picture of their beer, no one says anything. But when they tweet something political, it's stick
Mm,
to football. And so it's always kind of funny to see that like and I usually most of my tweets are about FCS now, but I do like to show that I'm not a robot. Um, and
right.
so like I'll tweet. I don't really have a whole lot of opinionated stuff, but it's hey, I'm at this concert. Hey, I'm at this game, or hey, I'm drinking a beer on a pontoon, and it's nice outside. I'm gonna tweet this out to show that I'm a human being and I'm not some robot that only tweets out AP style stuff and all that.
Yeah, it's typically not worth it. I think I find myself mostly in the center lines of political stuff. I'd be great in a swing state. North Dakota's super red. I'd do great in a swing state where you could have two sides just telling me two different things. I'd change my opinion every 30 seconds. Um, but when you try to even tweet something down the middle, you're like, great. Now, instead of making half of the people happy, just both sides are going to be very, very angry at this
Yeah,
tweet.
and that's even from an FCS perspective because you can. I'm trying to think of like a classic one, which is I can go on kind of a rant and say. Uh, look, the FCS has always lost teams to the FBS, and it always just keeps on chugging along, and it's not it's not crashing and burning, but at the same time, these move ups hurt the FCS, and it's damaging the FCS. And when I say that, I get one side saying, no, the FCS is crashing and burning. And then you have the other side screaming, no, the FCS will be fine. What do you mean? This isn't hurting the FCS at all. And so even towing the line in the FCS when everyone wants when something is happening, everyone kind of wants to take an extreme side of things. The transfer portal, is the same. Is the FCS now a farm system for the FBS? No. Is there elements of it? Yeah. There are elements of standout FCS players, and a lot of them going to the FBS. And if you just look at that, yeah, it kind of seems like the FCS is a minor league to the FBS, but there's also more standout players staying in the FCS than moving up. There's more players going down than going up. Um, and there's I think last year I did 2021 FCS to FBS transfers, and only like 24% of them like actually made an impact on their team in 2021. I'm going to do it
Interesting.
again for 2022. I just have to. It takes a long time to look up each transfer and how they did. But as far as 2021, like not a lot of FCS to FBS transfers made an impact. And then you look at this year in the FCS, there's a lot of FBS guys that made big impacts on their team. And so it's just, kind of went on a tangent there, but it's kind of one of those things where two things can be true. But on social media, you have one side saying, no, only this is true. Then you have the other side saying, no, only this is true. So when you toe the line and say, well, it's not that, it's not that, it's somewhere in between. Then you have, people from both sides, saying, no, it is this, or no, it is this.
Yeah. Could if you could eliminate one thing that fans would never complain or talk about with the FCS ever again, with a magic wand, it'll just disappear from your Twitter timelines, it'll disappear from Facebook, because I know mine, so I'll give you time to think here. And this actually does impact you, and this does impact folks in the media world. But I'm talking from fan perspective. I really wish fans would quit acting like ratings were such a big deal to them. I really got annoyed during the Frisco time frame when people were like, "I'm so mad it's against the NFL time frame. I'm so angry. I'm so mad." And I'm like, "Why? If the TV ratings are down, does that impact your tailgate at Frisco? Does that impact the fact that now the game is at 1 o'clock, which gives you more time to sleep in on Sunday, and you can actually go out a full day Saturday, come in Friday, fly back Monday? Nobody wants to be at work on a Monday. Being at work on a Monday is terrible. That's way better than Thursday to Sunday. I thought this year's tweak was great. I just got so annoyed by people pretending that like the ratings were going to impact them or their schools. Maybe it does in a small way, but if I could kill that narrative and fans just be like, the time slot's good for us to be at the game, that's definitely what I would choose. What about you? You got one you would just like wipe off the table? Magic wand?
I'm gonna go with two. There's a lot of them, but I want to
Two.
go with I want
You've been in the media too long, man. People are coming at you.
the first is the narrative that the FCS is dying. Uh, in my opinion, I don't think it's a question of is it dying. It's more of is it thriving. I think that's a fair narrative to have to discuss. Is the FCS thriving, especially now compared to in 2012 when you still had a lot of heavy hitters still in the FCS. But the narrative that it's dying, it's a sinking ship, and it's on fire. It's like it's literally not. Like, where are 130 of these teams going to go? You can't just say, all right, either FBS or you're a D2. Like, that's not how it works. From a athletic department standpoint, and politically, you can't just do that because a lot of these FCS schools are really good in mid-major D1 basketball or baseball. They're and they just happen to have D1 football, and they want to play cost-effective Division One football, which is why the FCS is what it is. And there's always going to be a subdivision for this level of football. Is the FCS going to exist in 20 years? I don't know, but will something like the FCS exist in 20 years? I would say that's a 99% chance of that happening. So the FCS is dying. Again, that's another one of those things where people jump to an extreme, and when teams move up, or a few standout players go to the FBS and the transfer portal or NIL, it's the FCS is dying. It's like it's literally not dying. Again, the question is it thriving? How healthy will the FCS be in 10 years? I don't know. It depends who's all left. So that's one. The second one is I've gotten really annoyed with the FCS playoffs versus Celebration Bowl debates. Like,
Oh,
that's just
thank you so much. Okay, wipe mine away.
and
Thank
it's
you
and it's
so
on
much.
it's on both sides
Both
too,
sides.
trying to draw comparisons. And this is again
So
what we're
bad.
this is again, yeah, what we talked about of two things can be true. And I think I'll say something positive and negative about the FCS playoffs and the Celebration Bowl, but people will jump on specifically what I said about negative about the Celebration Bowl, and kind of go with that. So the playoffs, the positive is you're crowning a Division 1 football champion through a 24 team playoff. Like, that's badass. Like, that's awesome. The negatives obviously are the warts, the fact that you don't make money, you lose money,
Mhm.
uh, you know, crowds, the bidding process, all that. There's a lot of warts to it, but at the same time, they're, they're the FCS. The point of the FCS really isn't to make money. But on the flip side, the Celebration Bowl, they have it figured out. The SWAC as a whole has got figured out as far as bringing in a lot of revenue, but the Celebration Bowl as itself, like, they got it figured out. It's a great atmosphere. It gets on ABC. It does great television ratings, whether Deion Sanders and Jackson State are in it or not. It does great television ratings. They actually make money off of it. The negative is if you're the best HBCU team, it's going to be very hard for you to be compared to the top 5 FCS teams because you're not going head to head. So that's the positive and negatives there. And so if you're if you're a fan of the FCS playoffs, you can look at the Celebration Bowl and say, I wish we had what you guys had as far as a really good television deal. But I'm not going to believe your Celebration Bowl champion is as good as the FCS champion until we see it. I think you can say both things and they both can be true. And from the Celebration Bowl perspective, you could say, well, why would we want to do that? You guys are losing money. That's kind of lame. But you could also say, well, if we want to be considered, a top FCS team, we kind of need to see how we stack up against quarterfinal and semifinal teams. And so you can take that approach from the Celebration Bowl perspective, looking at the playoffs. But that's usually not how it works. It's usually FCS playoffs fans calling the Celebration Bowl a joke and vice versa, which is not the case. Both have very, very positive things about them and also some negative things about them.
That is such a phenomenal take. That was one of the most liked and hearted comments I had this season on our FCS Fans Nation page.
Mhm.
Was somebody posted something negative about the Celebration Bowl, or it was negative about the playoff. I forget which one it was. And my reply was pretty lengthy, but I essentially, to sum it up, I said, "For the life of me, I will not understand on this page why people think it's okay, why people care so much to tear the other side apart in this scenario. I do not get it. Like, what is gained by two worlds that are different? Celebration Bowl is different and the playoffs are different. I'm not talking HBCUs and FCS. I'm talking bowls, playoffs. Why can't you just watch both of them and think, this is great and fun football? I really enjoy watching this. There's a trophy. I just do not understand that debate. I watched the Celebration Bowl and it was awesome. And I watched tons of playoff games and they were awesome. So that is a really, really good point there, Mr. Herder. Well done. I'm gonna actually have I think Amos is one of our great fans on our
Mhm.
page. I'm excited to invite him. Preston Adams, former James
Mhm.
Madison guy. I know I'm gonna message him. I cannot wait to talk to them about like the HBCU stuff and like this, you know, I'm some random kid up in North Dakota raised with zero diversity around me. Like, let's talk about HBCU and everything else. That'll be a fun conversation.
Yeah, you look at, the top fan bases as far as attendance, and at like six or seven of the top 10 are from HBCUs, and they have, cool classics, and they have, the SWAC title game and the Celebration Bowl, of course. And, I would love to see the HBCUs participate in the FCS playoffs. I think it'd be great, and I think they're making a lot of great strides on the field, because you go back 10 years ago, there was a gap there between, uh, the best SWAC team and the best MEAC team and the top FCS teams. And we saw that too with Florida A&M in 2021 against Southeastern Louisiana. But I think they have so much momentum off the field, and that's equating to on the field, where I do think, some of the best HBCU teams could make a run to the quarterfinals or the semifinals in 5 years. But I can say that and also say, if I was the SWAC and the MEAC, I wouldn't want a part of the FCS playoffs right now. Like, what reason besides trying to be the best FCS team? What other than that? Like, I guess that's a pretty good reason. But other than that, why would you get rid of a $1 million buyout to play in the playoffs where you could lose money? And so, again, that's, I don't always try to ride the fence, but in most of the time in life, two things can be true. And so, from my perspective, I would love to see the top MEAC team and the top SWAC team in the playoffs. But I also, if I was them, I wouldn't want to be in the playoffs right now in its current structure.
Right. Yeah. Lots of NDSU fans that I talk to. My main comeback with them with HBCU, they're like, well, they shouldn't be ranked. They're not in the playoffs. And I said, well, they can be, but that's a different topic. Let me just focus on my point here. Is you really liked NDSU being ranked during our transitional years, and you weren't
Mhm.
playoff eligible. So, uh, were you okay with us being ranked then? I mean, don't be a hypocrite here now.
Right.
Mr. Herder, my two margaritas are finished. However, I would like to pull one more of these questions out of this glass box because I think this thing is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So
Let's do a front.
you go to the front. All right,
Yeah.
here we go. How would you like to spend your elder years? Oh boy. Okay, so we've become the FCS goat, and you've covered the FCS or whatever it's turned into for 50 years, Mr. Herder. Where are you going to be? How are you going to live those older years? You going to just be covering sports till the day you die?
Well, I hope to until I recover, or not, until I retire. And then, after I retire, I don't know, probably go somewhere warm, living, growing up and living in Minnesota my whole life. I don't necessarily plan on moving anywhere else. So probably once retired, then move somewhere warm. But I think it'd be cool to, you know, still do something sports related, but maybe just go to a bunch of different stadiums. I know the um, there's a few people out there that have gone to all FBS stadiums, and now they're trying to get to all FCS stadiums. So I think that'd be something cool to do in whatever 40 some 35 years, so somewhere around there is still kind of stick around, but kind of just go to stadiums, not have to work them, just watch the games and enjoy them from that perspective.
To quote a show that I really enjoy, yeah, don't worry about that, man. That's future Ted's problem. Yeah,
Yep,
let that guy figure it out. You know,
exactly.
that would be cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here. This has hopefully been a lot of fun on your perspective. I just enjoyed it. I had this podcast in my mind for a few years. I hate the off season being too long, and I just genuinely am like, it's time to figure out who these people are just a little bit more from behind the screens. So whether it's only 50 people who listen to this, I'm kind of like you, Sam. My wife says to me, she goes, "You got the gear, you got the stuff." Her and I have a Tesla. She's like, "Make a channel about Tesla in North Dakota. Tons of people would watch." I actually don't doubt that. That's probably a pretty good niche.
Hmm.
She's like, "You love Clash of Clans, like stream the video game." I'm like, "Yeah." But honestly, it's amazing. I've tried to do that, and I've tried to do things with like metal music and other stuff that I like, and I do like 2 pieces of content, and I just deflate. But with this FCS stuff, for some reason, I just love it, and I think you can fake the funk for, like, money and jobs, but I don't think you can fake it for art and things that you're passionate about. So, I wanted to say that and then echo to you that it's really cool that where you're at, man, and hopefully you stay happy within the FCS and things keep rolling. Any final things you'd like the world to know about you, dude?
Uh, I don't know, nothing really. It was. I remember in Frisco this last year, someone kept saying, oh, it's so cool that you're hanging out with us common folks
A man of the
in,
people.
in the bar. I'm like, well, I'm just like you. Like, I'd like to. Like, I don't like I worked a lot, in Frisco. I did some media stuff and did some articles, but like at night I don't want to just sit in my hotel room. And so I'll go out, meet up with people, have a healthy amount of drinks, nothing too crazy or anything like that, even though Brendan kept on, buying me a couple of shots here or there. So maybe had two
Something.
or three more than what I was anticipating. But no, like I just kind of, I guess I already said it, but just I'm just a fan of the FCS, like everyone else, and I just have, I guess a platform to write about it and talk about it. And I think there's kind of, one thing too. The challenging part of this is with the FCS, you're kind of one of only a few people that cover the FCS, and so just naturally you kind of do it from a positive standpoint.
Yeah,
Uh, but at the same time, I don't want to be a PR machine for the FCS. I don't want to be a spokesperson for the FCS. I don't want to be an advocate for the FCS. Some of that stuff just comes naturally, like FCS over FBS upsets, or FCS draft prospects, like top returning players, top teams, like that kind of comes naturally because that's all covering things from a positive perspective. But I also, the challenge is again to not be a PR machine, and when something negative needs to be said, that's when someone needs to say it. And so whether it's playoffs or other stuff that conference movement, I do think that when there are negative stuff to be said, I'm not afraid to say it. But that again, that's just kind of the challenge of balancing covering the FCS, where a lot of your stuff is positive, but also at the same time, when you say something negative and an SID or a conference commissioner or a conference communications person say, "Well, why are you saying this?" I'm like, "Well, because it's true. I'm not a PR machine for you guys." So that's kind of another balancing act that maybe some people might not realize from a journalism media perspective.
I remember that from, the Weber State UND playoff thing. I
Hmm.
mean, you had to say something, and you definitely did in terms of this system is pretty broken in terms of how things played out in that scenario. So,
Yeah,
I
and yeah, that's something too where I also kind of need to caution what I say and how I say it. Um, because again, I kind of just view myself as someone that likes the FCS and talks about it and writes about it, and my opinion is just opinion of one person. But there, I also recognize now that people have brought it to my attention that what I do write or say, you know sometimes the ADs do talk about that, and sometimes the commissioners do talk about that. There
right.
was I think it was I think I had like a tweet thread where I just went in on the coaches poll and called it the most ridiculous thing ever.
Hmm.
And then that very week, I guess the playoff committee talked about the coaches poll and if they should use it or not.
Yeah,
And they were looking at my tweets, and so like that's something that like I guess I'm not like bragging about that, but I'm it's almost like I'm always gonna have the mindset of, oh, I'm just whatever, I'm just a person. My opinion is no better than anyone else's, but also being mindful of if I tweet something or if I write something, I need to be conscious of this could have not rippling effects, but it like other people are gonna see it and maybe react to it that is more than just, a fan saying, I agree with you, I disagree with you.
for sure. Well, I like at the end of my 2 margaritas here that it went full circle from, um, I'm Sam Herder and I'm just a normal guy and I'm trying to be as modest as possible. And no matter how hard you tried, the realization still came out that your voice is very important in the FCS community. So you might not want to be a PR machine, Mr. Herder, but I thank you for coming on here and having 2 margaritas with me. And just know that we all are aware of how much of a machine you really are. So I hope we can do this again. And then I'll cheers you from here, my man. So cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.